Hey there, Mama Work It Tribe. I'm Marissa Lonick, working mom of 4, lover of all things flow, family, and fulfillment. You're tuning in to the Mama Work It podcast, where we take aim at overwhelm, mom guilt, and exhaustion and swap them out for big dreams, belly laughs, and productivity that actually fits into your life. Every week, we dive into tips, motivation, and a healthy dose of fun so you can slay your day even when you're busy AF. Ready to feel seen, energized, and totally unstoppable? Let's get to work, mama. Hey, mamas. Welcome back to another awesome episode of the Mama Work It podcast. So glad you're here. My name is Marissa Lonick. I am a working mom of 4, your host and the founder of Mama Work It, where we support women in the juggle of mom life, wife life, work life, fill in the blank life. I don't even remember half the lives I'm living these days. But anyways, I am so excited to welcome our guest today. Her name is Colette Jane Fehr. She is a licensed psychotherapist, nationally recognized relationship expert. She's also the author of a new book called The Cost of Quiet: How to Have Hard Conversations That Create Secure, Lasting Love. Colette co-hosts the hit podcast Insights from the Couch, Real Talk for Women at Midlife, and Love Thy Neighbor, the relationship show. And her TEDx talk, Secrets of a Couples Therapist, was selected as a TED Editor's Pick. Colette, I'm so excited to dive into this topic, to hear more about your insights, your book, and just all things relationships. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here and talk about this with you and your audience.
Yes. Well, let's get started just with learning a little bit more about you. So tell us about your journey as a mom, as a psychotherapist, and most importantly, as a relationship expert.
Thanks. Yeah, I sort of did things out of order. So it's been an interesting journey. I got married really young, and my first marriage very much fed into the mission for my career, and that I grew up with wonderful parents, but they got divorced when I was in college. And in the years before they got divorced, there was a lot of fighting in my household. And this really taught me early on that I did not want to have like a contentious marriage. I was going to grow up one day and have the perfect, peaceful home. And I found a boyfriend right when I got to college who was very much the unemotional, everything's great here kind of person. And I thought I had figured it out. And I had my kids very young, but we hit a really bad crisis point, and didn't have the skills to navigate it. Tried going to therapy, and it was a disaster. We had a couples therapist who wasn't properly trained, who did kind of more harm than good. And that really, I ended up getting divorced when my kids were 1.5 and 3.5, which is one of the hardest times as a mom. And at the same time, I had to go back to work after years out of the workforce. And because I was so young, I'd only had a few years in the workforce at all to even go back to. It wasn't as common then to take a break from your career as it fortunately is now. And I went back into the workforce. I taught. Then I went and worked at an ad agency as copywriter, and it just wasn't the right calling for me. Something kept tugging at me that I should go back to school to become a therapist. I'd kind of been the unofficial family therapist in a way as a kid, and always the person people were coming to with their problems, which a lot of people will say. And I kept thinking about our bad experience in couples therapy. And that just drove me back to grad school, and I had to kind of work and go to school and raise my kids. So it was rough for a while, but I ended up deciding to specialize in couples therapy, even though I work with individuals too, so that I could help people who really do want their relationships. Obviously, that's not everybody, and there's no one right way to do it. But so I could help those people make it work with different communication and building secure attachment. And looking back, realizing my own marriage very well could have been saved if I had known what I know now.
Wow. I love that calling was so personal to you, and that experience, okay, during that time, I'm curious, because you didn't have the knowledge, the skills that you have now, having been back to school and a master's program and all those things, did you at the time suspect that the therapist was like incapable of helping you? Or did you just trust that the therapist was like, like we kind of blindly trust doctors sometimes, right? Like we go in and we're like, I don't know, I didn't study this. Like you tell me what's
You're
wrong
the
with
expert,
me,
right?
Yeah.
It's such a great question because it was really both. I had exactly what you're describing, where I'm like, okay, well, this person is supposed to know what they're doing, so I should just go
Mm-hmm.
along. But then my instinct would tell me, this is weird. This doesn't feel right. I mean, there was triangulation. There's so much to couples therapy. So I think one important thing I want to say to everyone, because we're living in a time where more and more I have couples who are proactively seeking counseling to strengthen their relationship rather than this last ditch effort before divorce that it used to be 30 years ago. That if you do go to couples therapy, make sure you find a therapist who is specifically trained in couples therapy. It's completely different, has nothing in common with individual therapy at all, and that they have a lot of experience working with couples, and also that you connect with them, because that's very much an important factor in whether or not therapy is going to help.
That's a good point. That's a really good point,
Yeah.
because I'm sure some people maybe love their individual therapist and then think, oh, well, maybe this person can also see like me and my partner if we're experiencing something, but it's probably not the best fit, like you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And you should really have a separate person. And I think it's just a great thing for all relationships, especially during the active parenting years, which we know is one of the hardest inflection points for relationships, that and the empty nest phase. So that's when everything kind of like came to the forefront for me and my marriage. I thought we were good until I had my first daughter. And then suddenly the needs that I had been suppressing for a long time were no longer felt like it was going to work for me emotionally, but I didn't know how to communicate effectively.
Okay. Well, let's get into this topic, because I think
Yeah.
a lot of moms too, they stay quiet to keep the peace.
Yep.
And you're saying that was you maybe suppressing some of your needs. Maybe it's just not wanting to, not be confrontational or whatever it is. But what does that cost you over time?
Yeah, and that was very much me. And I think it's our conditioning still in society for women. And then, of course, we want to keep our relationships good and we care about our family, and we're not always responded to well. So it starts to often feel like, well, this won't be productive or this isn't worth it. And then there's all this ideation about, that it's sort of noble to be needless and selfless, to put everyone else first. And over time, I think a lot of people can, and I was like this, at least I'll speak for myself. I thought like being so strong and being able to do everything, and then I wanted to do it my way, like I was so hyper independent. And I think a lot of women are like that. We take pride in that. And it's great to be independent and to have your own personality and strong will and do it the way you want to do it. But over time, it's really these small daily grievances that we all have. We know the mental load is disproportionately falling on women still, whether you're working in the home, outside of the home, both. More than 70% still falls on women. The anticipating, the reminding, the caring, the worrying on top of the tasks. So it can feel like we're doing all this emotional labor for men and we still don't get a good response, and we start to swallow, but you become resentful. You tell yourself it's not a big deal and I can let it go, but these things stack up inside. And I hear it in my office all the time, and I'll get women 30, 40 years into their marriage now coming in here saying, I have been angry and resentful for decades, and now it's too late. Now I hate him. And now maybe she's about to leave. and the husband's panicking and saying, don't leave, don't leave. And I'm hearing women at that point saying, it's too late. We're so disconnected. So whether you get to that point or not, what happens is that you ruin your own inner well-being. It can compromise your physical health, emotional suppression. And ironically, we're avoiding conflict to try to keep our relationships floating along peacefully, but we end up sabotaging it because emotional disconnection is the primary thing that destroys relationships. It's really not the issues, even though we may have differences in finances and parenting and even infidelity crises to deal with. I don't see couples ending their relationship over those issues. They end it when they're so disconnected, there's just nothing there anymore.
Yeah. Oh, I got chills when you were talking about the women coming in 30, 40 years later. I can imagine what grief that must feel like of just holding on to that for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. And we now know that self-silencing for women, first of all, let me just say, it's ironic that my book has the word quiet in it, because you can probably already tell I'm a talker. Right? For better or worse, I never shut up. I'm the last person anybody would think didn't have a voice in her relationship. I mean, I have something to say about everything. So this is not, like a feature of my personality that I was a quiet, meek person, not at all. And most of the women in my office are very emotionally intelligent. They're very savvy. This is not a group that doesn't have their voice in other areas in life, although we may still back down from conflict to be nice, right? Which we're trying to shed some of that conditioning as women, but we're still judged harshly if we're not complying or making everyone else comfortable. But even when you're pretty assertive in your work life or in other areas, it's very hard to say something in your relationship when you feel like you're going to get these bad responses or it's going to lead to a dead end argument. So in the book, I really identify the ways we avoid that are not, there's top 10 ways. And some of them are even things like bickering, blaming, criticizing. It's not all quiet. It's really more of a euphemism for the ways we avoid really connecting to ourselves, getting clear about our vulnerable feelings, because there's deeper emotion under the frustration, and then really sharing that and asking directly for what we need, which is what we really have to do to be healthy and to be good with us, because your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you have.
Yeah. And I think that you said something that just struck a nerve, at least for me, is you're right. Most of us are not these quiet, meek personality type of women, especially the listeners of this show. And yet it's almost like it's a vulnerability issue.
Yep, it is.
Because it's we are leading at work, we're leading at home, with kid stuff, management, household management. You said it before, the mental load. And sometimes expressing some of that stuff feels very vulnerable and uncomfortable because we lead, right? In so many ways.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. I mean, really what it is and what I take people through in the book is all the attachment science and how attachment styles really play into this, because I think that's become slightly mislabeled in terms of its importance and what's really true in the social media pop culture world. But really, at the end of the day, what it is fear of vulnerability. And it's this catch-22 because it's natural. And I really explain the science behind this. Anything, your relationship is the most important thing to you. We need a primary attachment figure in adulthood just as much as we do in children. I mean, we don't need it to actually survive, but we do need it to thrive. And research shows that the people who live longer are ones who have quality relationships. So our partner, if we're partnered up, that is our primary attachment figure. So if their expression tightens or their tone changes, our nervous system reads that as a threat. It's literally a fight or flight response that will happen. And then we're scared to dig in and say, hey, this really hurt me. This made me feel insecure. I need reassurance. I need comfort. And most of the time, these are emotional discussions, not problem-solving conversations. And we tend to skip over that part because we're scared to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
And they're uncomfortable. Yeah. They're uncomfortable. Like
totally.
we just want to like check off our to-do list and like relax and be done for the day.
Yeah. You're so right.
Who wants to do an uncomfortable, hard task?
I know. You're right. And that's the thing. It is like kind of prioritizing long-term over short-term comfort. But I will say, and this is why I really wanted to write this book, I have distilled this into a process called self-connected communication, and I give a whole blueprint for it. And the funny thing is the anticipation, the fear that comes in the anticipation of the conversation is usually far scarier than the conversation itself.
I think you're so right. It's like waiting online for the roller coaster and you're like freaking out. And then you get on and you're like, that was it. You know?
Exactly. And especially if you know how to do it, which is really, these conversations don't have to be long. Like when you're just sharing your inner world and you're speaking for yourself and you're not falling into those traps that are more destructive conflict, right? But you're saying, hey, I want to share with you how this impacted me, what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing. And you and your partner can engage in a conversation that's built on curiosity and validation and empathy. And even if you don't get that back from your partner, you're doing that and you're in connection with yourself. These conversations are usually short and to the point and can become real connection points. And this is where emotional intimacy and emotional maturity grows. So I think the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And now I can't imagine not expressing myself clearly and asking for what I'm needing in the moment, whether I get it or not. But it can sometimes still feel a little bit uncomfortable. I just know inside when I'm tempted to say, oh, it's not worth it. That's the voice that's usually protecting us from being vulnerable, from taking a risk. And it's instinctive, but it's not really going to serve us long term.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. So are there certain conversations that you feel are especially important not to avoid?
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so I would really say all of them, truly. I think you can't over communicate, but it's really important to be self-focused, right? To be using I statements and talking about you and what you're experiencing inside. And then really nothing should be off limits. Now, of course, people are going to say, yeah, but my partner isn't available for that. Or I've even been in the situation, even today in my marriage, where I say it perfectly, like, right, according to my own formula, and I still don't get a great response from my husband. And it's because we're human. We have triggers that are tied to old wounds. But I'm still committed to coming from the place of, look, I'm sharing this with you because I really care about our relationship. I'm not coming at you. I'm not criticizing you, but I do want to tell you how I feel. And if I can't, I'm going to feel more distant from you, and that's not going to be good for us. So when you have that framework, then you do want to be talking about all the things. And I think we don't have enough proactive conversations when we're not triggered about finances. I mean, this is a big one. Not everybody, but a lot of people are uncomfortable with. Of course, differences in parenting, our longings for the future, our dreams, our personal goals. You know, if I hate to say this because it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but even like if we found ourselves attracted to somebody else, I mean, there are so many things once you know how to communicate that can be navigated with sensitivity and care that are so seemingly uncomfortable, but are such opportunities for growth and understanding and that deeper layer of connection. Because you can be married for years and feel completely alone, which was me in my first marriage. There was someone right next to me and I felt like I was on an island. And that's
Mm.
what really makes us sad and sick. So, if there's anything you find yourself thinking, God, I'd love to talk about, I'm scared to talk about, I'll just make something up. Like, how much money are we saving? Like, are we thinking about retirement? I need more help at home. I don't feel like you're really seeing me or hearing me, whatever it is. Bringing it to the table, finding that initial courage and coming forward in a way that doesn't send your partner a signal of danger, which is, assessing if it's a good time, explaining why you want to share. There's so many things that can help to set you up for success in these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough because when things are going good and you're in a good place, you don't necessarily want to lean into those like topics that are potentially triggers, right? Or things that are going to put someone else like on the defense or in a bad mood, or just be like a Debbie Downer, in a situation.
Totally.
But that's what I'm hearing you say is that's the better time to bring it up, not when you're already like your nervous system's already shot or you're already angry or defensive or upset about what's going on. And it seems like we're all kind of doing the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. Either we say nothing or it comes out when we're like reactive. So a key to this effective communication is being regulated. And the formula I've kind of identified for this is that it's vulnerability and assertiveness. And assertiveness gets a bad rap because people think of it as like aggressive, but it really just means you're being clear and direct. However, with that has to go kindness. And so when you're assertive, you're regulated. You're in the adult self. I call it the sage self. This is where you have access to your wisest self and all of that information about the relationship. You have perspective. You have curiosity about your partner, but at the same time, you're willing to share your feelings. And it's usually some kind of fear about the relationship, some kind of hurt, sadness, loneliness, longing, like all roads underneath go back to those things. So while it is hard when things are good to not want to stir the pot, when you make this a habit, which is what we really need to do, and it's much simpler than people think, really, once you have the formula. If this is a habit, then you address things as they come up. You get the evidence in your body that it doesn't derail your whole relationship and spin out into a 3-day fight. And then it starts to feel a little more approachable. And it's even things like, hey, I've been just being totally vulnerable and assertive. I've been feeling really nervous or scared to have a conversation with you about our parenting right now or how we're managing our household. It just feels so big. I feel like we're going to get into an argument. I'm kind of dreading it, but I don't want to avoid it. How do you feel about that? Should we set aside some time to talk about it? Should we kick the can down the road a couple of weeks or a month or it's just speaking the truth, even about how scary the conversation is, that starts to get you connected to your partner. And you'll find they're probably afraid of that conversation too. But that conversation about how hard it is and how much you both want to avoid is connecting, and it's real. And that's what bonds us.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that approach too, is like, you don't even have to approach and have the conversation. You can approach and just say, should we have this conversation?
Yes. And I'm scared to. Like I kind of, right, just being real. Because I think what I'm really trying to say is that relationships are vulnerable to infidelities and divorce and dissolution, really when partners get disconnected. And this usually happens over time. And it usually really happens because we don't want to have the conversations because our life is busy and we're relatively content. And it's just not a great formula. We live a long time now. If we want our relationships to last decades and decades, it's just like your car. You just can't go without an oil change. Like your engine will blow up eventually. So you
Mm.
got to be proactive, just like you go to the gym or you try to eat healthy. I mean, believe me, I'd be eating chocolate chip cookies all day, every day if I thought that I could live on that, and I still do eat them, but you've got to have some vegetables too. So this is like vegetables for your relationship. And I really do think that once you start doing it, especially if your partner's responsive, then you don't dread it as much. It becomes just more of like, this is how we talk about things. And most of us don't learn this in our families of origin, even if we had wonderful families. Most people are conflict avoidant at home.
So what's a simple way to introduce the habit without, maybe scaring your partner or without you feeling, like what's a simple way if you're feeling like I have no idea how to approach this and make it a habit?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you do need a little bit of a process in terms of how you interact with yourself. And I always say, prepare before you share, right? We want to address something and share it. But first, there's got to be that inner bit, that little pause of time where you notice what you're feeling in your body, you name your emotions, and you sit with those different parts of yourself and those feelings that will tell you what you're needing or why something bothers you. And I even give a blueprint in the book, and I'll use it myself. I mean, I've been doing this for years now, but I'll use my own blueprint myself, especially when I'm feeling really emotional, because emotions can be confusing. So you want to get yourself regulated by processing and get really clear on what you want to say. But I would start very small. There's one little moment, like I'll pull an example from my own life where the other day, my dad was over, we're watching TV. I asked my husband something. Of course, I don't remember what. And I got this really snappy, short response that felt really out of the blue. And that's enough for me to be pissed. I'm like, why are you talking to me like that? And so it would be so easy to just fire back something like defensive or raising my volume or being like, why are you talking to me like that? Right. And so even something like that, I can sit with for a minute and then come back to him. I mean, I'm not going to address it in front of my dad, but say, hey, was something bothering you? Because I was a little hurt and surprised by the way you talked to me in front of my dad. And I just want to clear the air. Repair is so normal. You're going to have constant ruptures. But what we tend to do is just let that go. And instead, by asking, which I did, he was like, I didn't even realize I snapped at you. Like I was aggravated about the food not being ready. And he didn't even realize. And he said, sorry, I genuinely didn't even know I did that. And it was over. It's not that big of a deal. But that process of just bringing up something really small and saying how you feel, right? Your emotions, not your interpretation, which is where most of us go wrong, right? We'll say, I feel like you don't care, or I feel like you're always in a bad mood. That's not sharing your feelings. That's almost
It's not.
Right? I mean, it's what we do naturally if we don't slow down and process first. But instead saying, when you spoke to me the way you did, I was hurt. I was surprised. And I think what I needed in that moment was just to hear an apology or, it's not that big of a deal, but it was a small moment that I felt kind of disrespected, right? With the tone of voice.
The other way sounds like a real, backhanded way to criticize somebody, right? Like a really passive aggressive way to criticize somebody. So even just when you're exemplifying this, it makes sense. Totally.
Yeah. Rather than going, well, forget it. And in my head, what a jerk. Because those are the things that stack up. Or going, what's wrong with you? Why are you being such a jerk out loud? Right? Both of those things are not going to work. They're not going to create connection. And they're going to slowly chip away at the goodwill in the relationship versus a clean, hey, I was surprised, right? It's not a huge deal, but it's important to address it in a clean, self-focused way and then move on. And then you have no residue of resentment.
Yeah. Because you know what? It's hard when you are being quiet in that way, it's hard to not create a story in your head about someone else's intentions, right?
Oh, I have a whole chapter in the book about this because it's such a big thing.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I can't wait to read it because I feel like when you come out like that example you shared, your husband was like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't even realize, like, of course. Right. Yeah.
He didn't even know he had been a jerk. Yeah.
But like in your mind, if you hadn't said anything, you would probably be like, oh God, what an asshole. Like, why would he do that?
Completely. That's what I was already thinking. And I call it the negative partner story, all caps, because it's a really big thing. And it is our brain doing what it's wired to do. The brain's a meaning-making machine, right? And we feel things. So it's kind of conditioned by the emotions of the moment, how hangry we are, our past, our personality. All of that goes into the story we formulate. And it's really interesting as a therapist. You can hear when people, like, their go-to assumptions are based on their past experiences. So someone might get a certain response from their partner and think, you're manipulating me. That's their story. And that tends to be because they've been manipulated by somebody else in the past or that partner. Whereas, I don't think that because I haven't been in that kind of relationship, but I might think you don't care about my feelings, right? That's a go-to negative partner story for me because I've had that experience multiple times where I felt like a partner didn't care about my feelings. Now, I wasn't always expressing them clearly either, but the key is to know you're going to have a negative partner story and in the moment is going to feel 100% true. And what we want to not do, like, it's okay. You don't have to fight it away. We want to just notice it and hold it lightly and acknowledge this feels true right now, right? But I'm going to decide what I really think after I've had some time to process. And what we don't want to do is take that story and project it onto our partner because then it's blame and accusation. And we are immediately off to the races in what I call a bickering loop, where it's going to be criticize, defend, and right, it's just going to ratchet up. And then usually people go, well, forget it. That I'm done, and you leave off with no repair and nobody's really heard anybody or addressed what really matters.
Yes. Been there.
Me too. Because it's our instinct. Yeah. So we're trying to like override our instincts a little and just realize this stuff's normal, but we can kind of do better than what our instincts from fight or flight are telling us in the moment.
Yeah. Oh, this is so interesting. I can't wait to dig into the book. And I wish we could keep talking about it, but this is a 30-minute show, so we got to keep it moving here.
No worries.
Colette, I want to get into our lightning round now before we wrap up. We're going to ask some random, fun, personal questions just so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. If they made a movie about your life, who would you want to play you?
Ooh, Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yes. I could see it.
Yeah.
What is your cocktail of choice?
These days I pretty much only drink Pinot Noir or Prosecco.
Oh, I love those. Yeah.
I know everything else has kind of fallen away. Yeah.
Yeah. If you could go on vacation tomorrow anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Italy. Can never get enough of it.
Yeah. All right. Last question. What's something most people may not know about you?
Oh my God, I feel like everyone knows everything about me because I never shut up and I tell everything. I'm an oversharer. What would somebody not know about? Oh, okay. Maybe that I'm very afraid of a lot of physical things that people find fun. I won't ride a roller coaster. I'm scared to fly. I'm scared of heights. Like, I'm really no fun sort of in a way because I have so many fears. But I fell back on my sparkling personality.
You're a lot of fun when you're like on the ground.
Exactly. I've got to be on the ground. It can't be in a small space. I will not ride a roller coaster. It's crazy. My kids are like, what is wrong with you? You're no fun, but it is what it is.
Colette, confession time. I don't like roller coasters either. I don't even know where that analogy came from before. I don't like them. I don't go on them. My husband is the the fun parent. When we go to amusement parks, I stay with the little kid and like stay in like the little kid part of the theme park.
Me too. I would ride a kiddie coaster, and that's the most I'll do.
Yeah,
I'm so glad I'm not alone.
You're not alone. You're not alone. I'm not afraid to fly, but I am afraid of roller coasters.
Well, I didn't used to be afraid to fly, but I had a couple bad experiences, and I do fly all the time. So that's a fear that I've chosen to work through. But the roller coasters at this point in life, I'm going to sit with the little kid or whoever
unnecessary.
else. Yes.
Yeah. Unnecessary thing to tackle. Yeah.
Agreed.
Italy, you want to go to Italy, you're going to conquer the fear of flying, but you don't need to conquer the fear at Six Flags. I get it.
Exactly. I'm going to Italy. I am not even going to Six Flags at this point.
Yeah. All right. Well, please tell our listeners where they can connect with you, get your book, learn more about you.
Yes. So The Cost of Quiet is available wherever books are sold. You can also buy it on my website, ColetteJaneFehr.com. I have a great Substack called Secrets of a Therapist, where I post something every week that gives you real actionable tools. And I'm very active on Instagram, in particular at Colette Jane Fehr.
Colette, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It was so much fun.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Mama Work It podcast. I hope you feel empowered, inspired, and ready to take your next step. If this episode spoke to you, share it with another amazing mama, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps us show up wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to head over to mamaworkit.com for free resources, coaching support, and new ways to momage your days as a busy mom. Until next time, keep on working it, mama.